Welcome back to Witness Stories. This one I call The Golden Tooth. Now, I did create these stories to give people examples of evidence you can get of the paranormal. This particular one, I can't guarantee you can go out and get this experience. With the possible exception, maybe you could try to ask your guides or pray to God or Jesus or whatever you believe in to give you something this good. So I'll jump into it for you. In the case of me, I'm lucky that somebody else triggered this event. I just happened to be their child, and lucky me. So anyway, here's what happened. Sometime in the early 1970s, while my parents were members of a parapsychology group that operated in the Seattle and Western Washington state, they were made aware of through that group, they were made aware of some presentations that Willard Fuller, you can look this guy up for this subject on the internet, on Wikipedia. Mr. Fuller was providing access across the USA on the subject of the psychic dentists. These were presentations that he made in various cities and places. So my parents traveled 5 hours south to Portland, Oregon, where they told this was going to happen in a particular hotel. They rented a room there. And there was a theater in the hotel that was also to be used for the presentation. The presentation was to happen after dinner. I imagine it was like 7 p.m., something like that. So they went to this presentation after dinner. Very convenient for the psychic dentists, I would think. In the presentation, Mr. Fuller presented the origination story and his relationship to the psychic dentists. He explained that these were dentists who had passed on and chose to provide this service direct from spirit. During the evening presentation, he explained that he will invite the dentists in a few moments, and they will start to work on many of the audience attending the session. And they would be continuing working on through the night for some people. And after doing the spiritual invitation, the lecture, then he did like an invitation, something like I invite in the spirit, the psychic dentists. Okay. So after he did that, the lecture continued. The presentation continued after that, and the whole thing was over within 2 hours. At the end, Mr. Fuller simply completed a prayer and thanked the dentists and thanked everyone for coming, and good night. So at that point, after the presentation was over, my parents stood up and looked at each other and shared that each of them, their mouths were feeling warm and a little odd. They went straight from there to their rooms. So they did not need to eat or go anywhere else. They just went up to their room and went to bed. I should mention that I have heard various observations that warm and tingly or fuzzy is something commonly reported in psychic healings. Just a footnote there. So they went to bed, as I said. In the morning they got up. My mom felt like her teeth had been cleaned, and by the looking of it in the mirror, that's what seemed maybe had happened. She wasn't completely sure, but it felt like that to her. My dad said, yeah, he felt something too. and he started looking in the mirror, and yeah, they seemed to feel like it, they seemed to look like it. And as he was looking in the mirror, he goes, "Whoa, what?" Looks down over here and goes, "Wow, a brand new golden tooth was there, just past his lower incisor, one of these before, just in front of the molar." So that was interesting. Next, they, after they had dressed, got all cleaned up, paid for the room, back in the car. They drove back up to Olympia, Washington, where I was as one of their children. In the days and weeks after that, we as their children were told the basic details of this adventure. But would you think? To my knowledge, not one of us kids ever asked to see the tooth. Typical for teens, I suppose. Me, I guess, whatever we were doing was much more in our minds than a simple materialization of a gold tooth. So anyway, around 20 years later or so, I was now aware of how important it is to be your own witness. And I also knew that my dad was getting very old. So at some point I had traveled back to my family's, to meet up with my family, a family meeting or whatever. And at that point, I asked my dad, could I see it? He looked to me like, he looks at me and he goes, "What? Oh yeah, right here." So I looked at it. I looked at it closely, and it looked to me not like any gold tooth I'd ever seen. It was not polished like a gold ring. The closest material and look that I've seen is the color of these titanium tipped drill bits you can see at the hardware store. It looked like an alloy of gold and not really polished. And looking very close at it, the oddest thing was that the gold seemed to blend into the enamel of the tooth near where the gum line was. There's less and less gold at this little 1/16 of an inch transition, and tooth after that. And the gold itself had all the texture on the surface of the apparent surface level of the original tooth. It looked to me like the enamel had turned into gold. Yeah, this is the most unbelievable of my stories, but it happened. I saw the tooth, and I believe the stories that my parents told me. They were not people that tended to get they liked proof just like I liked it. They wanted to see evidence of things before they're going to believe anything. But here again, I only got to be first person by looking at the tooth, and I have to depend on trust in this case. Now, me telling the story to you is no proof of anything. You're third person. You don't know me. You don't know how honest I am or not. But for me, as first person and second person in this case, trusting my parents, I'm pretty satisfied. I have to admit to only being the second person, of course, because I was not there for the actual event. I have to take my parents at their word. So there's no way without knowing me and my parents to know how logical, evidence-based, and science-aware we all were. But for us, we are more than glad we had made an effort to experience what we did. So for you, if you were interested in such a event, why don't you set yourself up for an experiment? Tell your guides and your angels that you would like to see this kind of evidence that would show you proof. I would not require it to be proof that you can show to anybody else, just because you have to respect other people's life plans and other people's situations on this earthly plane, but it could be proof. I believe you could get proof for yourself, something that you can't deny. So just ask for that. See what happens. Weeks, months, even years after that, something may well come to you. Try it.